Hello, everyone. My name is Phil, and I'm a doctor who likes to play board games. And today I'm going to be talking about Indonesia. This is a Splotter game from 2005. I've been able to play a little bit of this online, and I will link the website in the description of this video so you can go play this game as well as other approved Splotter games like Fuchin Magnate, Horseless Carriage, among some others as well. In addition to playing online, I was able to play this in real time as well on the table. So now I'm ready to talk about this game. So for my review, I'll talk about the interesting mechanisms that Indonesia provides, my game comparisons from the games that I've already played, a peer review based on comments on Board Game Geek, and then finally my rating and review. Indonesia is a game where we build an economy with the islands of Indonesia, investing into different food and shipping companies. And after an indeterminate amount of rounds, whoever has the most money wins. I won't touch on all the rules, but as a overview of some of the more interesting parts of this game, first, this game revolves around merging companies. You can acquire them for free. However, during the merger phase, one of the phases of the game, under the right circumstances, you can propose a merger, or force a merger rather, among similar companies. You can merge companies from the ones that you have, or even merge companies of other players, and then everyone who can bid for them will bid and potentially will acquire them. There's lots of math and money changing involved in this process, but the game evolves and progresses based primarily on these mergers. In addition, the game features tight track advancement called the research and development part of the board, which allows for advancement once per turn and offers the ability to either have more companies or slots for more companies. You can allow for more mergers to happen, allow for more goods to be delivered on ships, and even there's a track for how strong your bid is for when turn order occurs, as that is also determined every round by turn bids. With only one advancement per turn, and with a game that typically lasting about 7 rounds, these decisions are pretty crucial. And then finally, the game primarily functions to gain money through operations, where you deliver goods from ships to cities, gaining money for resources delivered. But spending money for the ships you used if you used a ship company belonging to another player, which would cut into your earnings. Cities will grow, companies will expand, and this will allow for more lengthy deliveries and logistics to further the game and allow for a bigger experience when you do the operations phase. For my game comparisons, reaching from the games that I've played already, I must admit that I've only been able to play 4 out of the many Splotter games thus far. And if I had to choose from one to compare this to from that category, it would probably be Roads and Boats, mostly for the logistics aspects of this game. Major functions of both of these games revolve around where you develop and build out your companies or the areas of resource production, and then finding ways to deliver those goods to where they need to go. And whether that's through your own routes, in the case of Indonesia, through your own shipping companies, or by utilizing someone else's routes, introducing that, that introduces a lot of player interaction and the shared utilization of infrastructure that makes games very interactive and tight. In a somewhat similar vein, I think about my experiences with train route building games, primarily with Age of Steam, which not only features the route building and logistics that you might see in a game like Roads and Boats as well as Indonesia, but also the element of bidding. Age of Steam features bidding for player turn order and turn abilities, while bidding is featured for turn order as well as for merging companies in Indonesia. So bidding really does play a big part in both games, and turn order really matters in both games as well. In particular, in Indonesia, going last sometimes makes sense, not only to save money from the bid for turn order, but also to react to what others do on subsequent turns and phases to kind of flesh out what strategies you might want to go for. It doesn't compromise your position as well based off of the actions of others. And so more information is better sometimes. The dynamics in both games in how player turn order occurs and with Age of Steam, particularly dealing with not only being able to do things first, but also which powers you can break the game with. I think it really matters a lot, and it kind of self balances in a way where bidding for these powers or for turn order or for whatever you're doing really dictates how the game goes. The last game that I wanted to compare this to that I played recently was Wildcatters. It's a more of a unique game, and I think a lot of Splotter games are considered to be somewhat unique as well. But Wildcatters is a highly interactive game where you are building infrastructure and utilizing other people's infrastructure as well. And so there's a lot of I think central board interaction that felt very similar in hindsight when I thought about Indonesia as well. Reading the comments on Board Game Geek from others on Indonesia, of which there are a lot since this game has been around. First, one of the most common complaints, and I'll start with some of the cons, is the graphic design of the game. It has that classic look from other Splotter games. They're notorious for having a pretty uh, quote unquote low budget design when it comes to graphic design. But this game, perhaps more so than the other Splotters that I've seen so far, really suffered from having a hard time with the first editions, right? Having people having a hard time deciphering the game state based off of the map itself, the coloring, the components, and like the inclusion of paper money as well, which didn't really sit well with a lot of people who tend to use more high quality components nowadays anyway. As with other heavy Splotter games, the length of the game was pretty lengthy, and it's a game that can be lost early in the game, and so it not might not be the kind of game for some players who uh, don't have that kind of flexibility or forgivability in a game. If you're not a fan of calculations as well, there's a high amount of calculations made in this game with money, with bidding, and the splitting of who gets what when a company merges. And so, if that is not your cup of tea, that might be a turnoff as well. However, many commenters praise this game for being such an elegant economic game, with the uniqueness of the merging mechanism highlighted as something that to this day continues to be unique. The rulebook and rules are relatively straightforward and easy to intuit, hence making this game elegant. And it leaves room to understand the core strategies of how to play this game well and how to react to what other players are doing, and to potentially plan ahead because of those reactions that you're making. You're not really bogged down by a lot of rules. There's not a lot of variability, so this could be a pro or con for some people, only in terms of like where cities are placed in each area. That's basically the only thing that is variable from game to game and within the game. But it gives that game a chess-like feeling that a lot of fans of this game enjoy. Because of how integrated each player's actions are with the game state, people say that they're quite engaged with the game the entire time, even on other players' turns, despite the length of this game being pretty long. My final review and rating is quite positive for this game. I do agree that the rules are quite intuitive. It took me a bit of time to wrap my head around the math required when merging companies, how the bidding kind of starts, how much each company is worth, and how do you split that as well. So it's really helpful to have someone who has played this game and knows those calculations help you through one or two of those at the beginning. But it's not as bad as you having to have a calculator constantly. I harken back to my thoughts on when I played Power Grid, and those calculations I could do pretty much in my head, but those calculations were very consistent, and so I felt pretty brain fatigued at the end of the game. I didn't feel that way based on this game. It was long, but I wasn't tired per se because of the calculations made in this game. Indonesia is an elegant game and how it plays, and I felt very engaged throughout the 4 or so hours it took to play it on the table. In our particular experience, we had to stop playing the game because the game store closed. We tried to start as early as we could, but even after 4 hours, we have one round left in the game, potentially one round left in the game, and we are going to set this up next time and finish it to completion. And so, really excited for that. And I think that speaks a lot to how engaged not only I was, but how we all were with this game not being content having it be uncompleted. We want to finish it. It is quite a tactical game and experience, despite the lack of variability. It does remind me of games that I do enjoy, Rosenberg games like Caverna and Fields of Arle, with very limited variability, dictating the strategy of the game. I think rather basing off the game to game experiences being unique and different, I think rather than the game itself dictating that, those Rosenberg games, as well as Indonesia, provide that unique experience based off of the player decisions that are made and the like different players that you might play with as well, contributing mostly to making each game feel different. I've heard it compared to other 18xx games as well, in terms of some of the mechanisms that, like, the different phases of the game. The merging mechanism is somewhat similar, I've heard, to other 18xx games, the operations phase as well. And so it may or may not be an accurate statement, but as I dive deeper into the hobby and potentially get some 18xx experience under my belt at some point, I wonder if it will hold true, and maybe this experience with Indonesia will be a good springboard into those types of experiences. I think the one thing that keeps me from absolutely loving this game, despite my really high rating, is the great, despite the great way that this game provides variability, which is low but meaningful. I feel for me personally that I could potentially get to a satisfying number of plays and repetitions of this game relatively quickly, like within a handful of plays rather than like 40, 50, etc. I think you could play this game 40, 50 times and still learn and still react differently to based off of how different players approach the game. But I feel like in general that min-maxing this game requires an understanding of the math behind the bidding and keeping a general track of the profits that each merged company could potentially provide based off the game state. And so I think to really min max this game would be very crunchy and very numbers driven, despite what I said before, with the calculations being relatively manageable. I think to really play this game at an elevated level, you would need to do a lot more math, maybe not a lot more, but really be savvy with the math of this game. And that may or may not be your cup of tea. I don't think I would enjoy that min maxing process. I think for me, the game is one of those games that feels great to play every once in a while. The rules are, as mentioned before, relatively intuitive and straightforward, and so it's a relatively easier process to pull this game out after months or even years of play and be and feel refreshed to play it again. And so that does bode well for like a game that would be replayable over an extended amount of time. But I think that's what I would rather have this game be, is a game that I do return to every once in a while. Unlike perhaps Roads and Boats, which I do need to play again. Roads and Boats as well can be played solo, so it's easier for me to like set up and play on my own. But I would need to kind of solidify my opinion of Roads and Boats even further to make sure that's a game that I would want to like dive deeper into and play a little bit more over and over again in a shorter amount of time as compared to Indonesia, which would be very welcome every once in a while, right? So, in conclusion, if you're looking for a tight, interactive economic game with streamlined rules, tough decisions, interesting mechanisms, a little bit of math, a little bit of money changing, but a very tight and interactive experience, this game might be right for you, as it was for the most part right for me. I definitely recommend it and look forward to playing it again, whether it's now or in the future. So those are my thoughts on Indonesia, an old game, but a great title that has withstood the test of time. Let me know what you think about this game in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next video. Take care.